good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started. So out of respect for your time, so delighted to see so many familiar and some new faces with us today. Welcome to the Leadership Institute at Purdue Northwest Lunch and Lead. So this is a series that we started during the pandemic when we realized that we were kind of lonesome and we were missing that one-on-one contact at lunchtime, chatting with our peers and sharing ideas. And so we created this series, and it became so popular that we decided, well, you know what, we're just going to keep on doing this during lunch hour. So today's a rainy lunch hour, and we're hoping that this will be kind of the highlight of your day. We have a very, very special guest today. Before we introduce her, I see our academic director, Dr. Rachel Clapp-Smith, is on with us, and welcome, Rachel. We're so glad you're here. If you'd like to give a shameless plug for our programs, feel free. I know that Dr. Jane Thomas was going to join us. She may be joining us in just a moment. Jason Williams is with the Leadership Institute and the Society of Innovators. And so thank you, Jason, for helping us. And then our Assistant Director, Makisha Neal, is going to introduce our amazing speaker today. So Tiffani Davis is just a marvelous person. And I'm really excited that we're going to be sharing her ideas with, I've heard her present twice and just it'll knock your socks off. So Makisha, if you could be so kind and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sheila. Welcome, everyone. As she said, we are very excited to have Tiffani Davis of Centier Bank to join us. And when we have a moment towards the end, we'll have Dr. Rachel to give us that shameless plug for L&I. But without further ado, please let me introduce you to our very special guest. Tiffani Davis began her banking career over 20 years ago as a part-time teller. From there, she worked her way up to manage various bank branches and served as regional manager in 12 in-store offices. From there, she shifted her focus to sales and client experience. Today, she's the vice president of client experience at Centier Bank. She is responsible for creating and planning the client experience strategy, facilitating sales and experience training, and managing several key programs. Through these areas, Tiffani collaborates with all lines of business to create a remarkable client experience and increase growth. But more than that, Tiffani has an eye towards the community. She serves at her church and volunteers with various organizations such as the American Heart Association and the Foodbank of Northwest Indiana. And she also serves on the board at the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Northwest Indiana. Tiffani really has a heart for people, and she is driven and motivated to inspire and propel others to be the best version of themselves, which leads us to why we introduced her, or why we invited her, here today, to give you a talk and tell you a little bit about her story, her journey towards success. There's a saying that goes, to whom much is given, but what about those of us that didn't get much, right? So Tiffani's going to share her story of, I don't want to call it rags to riches. That's a poor choice of words, but Tiffani's going to share her amazing journey and hopes to inspire you to do the same. Without further ado, Tiffani Davis.
Thank you so much. And I just want to thank all of my friends that are out there that have joined. I see a lot of you, so thank you for the support. There's also a lot of people whom I've helped on their journey on this meeting today, so I appreciate you as well. And so I want to share some lessons that I've learned over the years from hand-me-downs and hard work. That's the title of our message today. And so without further ado, let me jump into the agenda just so we all know what we're expecting to look at. Let me share my screen here with you. So we really have three things that we're going to be doing today. So I'll do a quick walk down memory lane. I'll share some of the things of my past, a little bit of my story. I'll go through 6 leadership lessons with everyone, and then we'll have time for question and answers. And if, as I know Sheila mentioned earlier, if there's questions or you have comments, you can drop those in the chat. While I won't be looking at them as I'm sharing, they'll be looking at them and pulling some questions, and then towards the end, we'll do that as well, okay? So, first slide. This always gives me a little bit of a mixed chuckle because this is #real-life, okay? This was me, the youngest of 3 kids of my mom. She was a single mom, and she worked really hard. But despite her best efforts, we still skated on the lines of poverty. So we talk about free lunch, welfare, food stamps. We qualified for all of it. Looking back, I often wonder how my mom pulled it off, but that's what moms do, isn't it? That's what they do. And so hand-me-down clothes, if you look at the two pictures that I've put on the screen here, you'll notice that in both of those outfits, they're a little bit too big. You can see that button down is maybe a couple collar sizes too big for me. And the turtleneck is almost past my hands, the sleeves, and the jeans are really tucked tight at the front because that belt is cinching those pants that are too big for me. They're cinching those together. But when we talk about hand-me-downs, there was no trips to the store at the beginning of the school year for that back to school shopping. There was none of the let's go and grab you the scarf and all the winter attire because the seasons are changing. It was look through the bags and see what fits. And it wasn't always about what you wanted to wear. It was about what fit and what you could grow into. In terms of rundown living conditions, I really want to make sure that I provide some context on this one because a lot of people may not understand what that looks like. So for us, my mom paid $400 a month in rent. And if you think about that now, you're like, oh my God, that's nothing, right? But it was what she could afford. And even then, sometimes she struggled to make that rent each month. And with the old saying, you get what you pay for, this could not be more true. So we had a landlady who never really took care of the repairs or issues at the house. Anytime my mom complained, she threatened to raise the rent. And obviously we couldn't afford the $400, so we didn't want anything raised in the rent. And so my mom tried not to rock the boat. So we dealt with issues with the plumbing and periods of time when we couldn't bathe regularly. And so when I say we couldn't bathe regularly, I legit mean, you can go wash up in the sink. Like you can't use the tub, you can't use the shower. There's not an ability to do that. The septic system would back up. And if you've ever had an issue with the septic systems, you know that there's that just sludge that comes up from everywhere, the drains in the floor, the drains in the tub. And so that was a pretty regular occurrence for us. And so we really tried to shy away from doing a lot with any type of water. And so even despite that, when we did, either, wash clothes or, take baths, sometimes the septic would come up, causing an overflow in the kitchen and the bathroom. So over time, that caused a decay in the kitchen cabinet area. So the cabinet started to fall apart and then the sink fell apart. So we had no sink. So for years, we washed dishes in a plastic tub and then we would just dump the water out in the backyard. Like that's how we washed our dishes. And so those are some of the things when we talk about rundown living conditions. We had holes in our ceiling because we had holes in the roof that were never repaired. And so my sister and I, the room that we shared, there was 2 holes in either corner of the room and rain would drip in. And then when the decay continued, then it was like a torrential downpour that came into the room. And it wasn't just rain that came in. We had birds that would fly into that hole because mind you, there's an opening. So there's wildlife that comes in. We had a cat that, graced us with his presence one time. And probably the craziest visit was when my sister and I were sleeping. We shared a room, shared a bed. So if you've ever had to share any type of space with a sibling, you know that it's already like, just don't touch me, stay to your side. And so I felt her touching me and I was like, leave me alone. Like, stop touching me. I probably hit her. I was a bit aggressive as a kid. So I probably hit her and was like, leave me alone. And she hit me back and we went back and forth a little bit, but then it immediately stopped when she felt something run across her feet. And it was like, what's happening? So I was not brave enough. She lowered the blankets to see what was going on. And there was a squirrel frantically running around our bedroom. It had fallen in the hole and it couldn't get out. So we're screaming. My mom and brother come through the door and then they immediately close the door back again when they see the squirrel in there. And we're like, what are you doing? There's a squirrel. And then my brother has the smarts to go out of the house, open the bedroom window, and then finally the squirrel gets let out. So that in essence and that's just a 10th of the stories that I could tell you about, how we lived. But at the end of the day, I'm not telling you these stories that we can all attend a pity party. I'm sharing this with you because the past doesn't dictate the future. If even one person walks away from this lunch and leave today, knowing that they directly shape their future and the future of those they lead, I've done my part. So let's begin. The first lesson is hard work, no excuses. And I can tell you, my mom used to say that all the time. And so we'll start with a quote from the hardest working man in entertainment, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Anytime I can throw him in a presentation, I will absolutely do so. And so he says that he's always asked what the secret to success is. And he shares that the secret is there is no secret. You're humble, you're hungry, and you're the hardest worker in the room. My mother and my grandmother, rest their souls, would agree. And so they impressed on my siblings and I that hard work paid off. Whether in school or at work, there were no excuses for not working hard. Being poor wasn't an excuse, being Black wasn't an excuse, and being a girl wasn't an excuse. In fact, all those things were reasons to work that much harder. Working hard at school earned you good grades, which meant scholarships for college. We weren't going to get to college without good grades or scholarships because we didn't have any money. Working hard in your career meant better pay and financial stability. So we always had a reason to work hard. So I've carried that mantle of hard work throughout my life, including as a leader. Hard work often leads to increased responsibility and advancement, but at the end of the day, it isn't about that. There's an inner satisfaction and fulfillment that comes with knowing you've worked hard and that you've done your best. And that, I believe, is what my mother and grandmother were really trying to instill in us. A sense of achievement despite our circumstances. So if you get the honor of leading people, it is your responsibility to demonstrate hard work and encourage it within your team. Letting them see you work hard and that you aren't asking them to do anything that you wouldn't do is priceless. And I don't mean overworking people and taking advantage of strong work ethic, because we've seen that too. I mean being an advocate for hard work and work-life harmony. Okay. Lesson number 2, take chances. Now this one is easier said than done, except when you don't have much to lose. The higher up you go, the harder it hurts when you fall. And the level of risk increases, but so does the reward. The definition of chance is a possibility of something happening, an opportunity to do something. The informal definition is doing something despite its being dangerous or of an uncertain outcome. When I was in my early 20s, I'd finally finished my degree after changing majors 3 times, not once, not twice, but 3 times. That's another story for another day. I'd been in banking for about 5 years at that point, and I was ready to spread my wings. You all know how it is. You get that degree in hand and you're like, I can do all things. And so I was the assistant branch manager at an in-store bank, and I was eager to move into more responsibility. But my manager at the time, which I will never forget, told me that I'd never be more than an assistant branch manager. And that was when I knew I had to take a chance. And so I applied at a different bank for the same position that I was currently in, hoping that they might see that there's potential, that I could have a possibility to move forward at some point. And so after 3 interviews, I was offered the branch manager position at a location that hadn't even been built yet. So they saw something that she would never see. And so sometimes you really do have to take the chance. And I will tell you, I was over the moon. Now, don't get me wrong. I was also petrified because I felt like I was in over my head. But guess what? What did I have to lose? And so I invite you to take chances like you have nothing to lose. Create possibilities, reinvent what is possible. Ted Sorensen, the speechwriter for President John F. Kennedy, shared that you will never experience personal growth if you fear taking chances. You should take chances on yourself. Accept the promotion, move to a new city, go back to school. So what if it doesn't work out? So what if it didn't work out and you're going to go back again? It's okay. The good thing is, if you're taking chances, you're growing. When the chance doesn't pan out, you learn from it and you move on. And then of course you take chances on other people. If you've ever had someone take a chance on you, you know how amazing that feels. I didn't get to this place by myself. So many incredible and brave people took chances on me. I'm not referring to when someone delegates something to you because they don't want to do it and they're like, oh yeah, give it to Tiffany, that's fine. No. I'm talking about a conversation in which they share they believe in you and your ability to successfully complete a task, even if you don't yet believe in yourself. What's the worst thing that could happen? In the end, we only regret the chances that we didn't take. Lesson number 3. You knew this one had to come into play. Handouts can be hand-ups. So this might seem contrary to the first lesson regarding hard work because the term handout generally gets a bad rap. A handout implies that the person receiving it hasn't earned it and therefore doesn't deserve it. There are people out there who have taken advantage of the generosity and kindness of others. We've known that, we've seen that, but there are so many more that are grateful for the help. As I mentioned earlier, our family received government assistance. baskets of food from local charities during the holidays. And of course, the garbage bags of hand-me-down clothes that my mom's friends would bring over whenever they cleaned out their kids' closets. When I was young, I didn't realize that we were getting handouts. Why would we know that? No one said, hey, here's your bag of handouts. It was like, here's a bag of clothes, see what's gonna go in there. And I was genuinely excited when we get those bags of clothes. It always felt like an adventure. Like, what are we gonna find? What are we gonna discover? Because it was all new. Those were new things to us. And so we were fortunate and blessed to be surrounded by caring people who knew the struggles that my mom had and offered us help. As I got older, I realized that they weren't hand-me-downs or handouts, that they were hand-ups. And it wasn't just when I was younger either. I was given opportunities and chances throughout my career that were hand-ups, hence the previous lesson, right? We want to make sure that we're giving people chances. So as a leader, you get to determine who receives the handout. If you're in a leadership role and you're not reaching your hand down and pulling someone up with you, get to work, okay? The key to a great hand up is to set someone up for success by making sure they have what they need. That might mean giving a team member a chance who maybe doesn't fit the full mold of what you're looking for, but has a passion for the work. Or perhaps it's someone on your team who needs a little extra coaching and training so that they're ready for that promotion. Often the people who need the hand up are so grateful for the opportunity that they will work twice as hard to prove they deserve it and to make sure they don't let you down. From the leadership standpoint though, there are two important things to note. Do not let a hand up become a hand slap. There isn't a guarantee that all will go well when you're offering someone a hand up, but it's imperative that we make sure that they understand what's expected and we give them the tools to succeed. The second one is don't throw a hand up in someone's face. There is nothing worse than getting something from someone and then never letting you forget it. Hey, if it wasn't for me, hey, remember when she's only here because that's disheartening, discouraging, and embarrassing. If you're gonna give someone a hand up, you do it in private. You don't have to tell the world. You don't have to tell the world, just let that shine and then you know that that came from your assistants, right? So if you happen to be on the receiving end of a hand up, like I have, don't despise small beginnings. The key for you is to take it and maximize it. Don't take it for granted or squander it. So when I joined that bank that I mentioned earlier as a new branch manager, I was eager and excited. I was like a sponge learning everything and making sure I earned that spot because I knew that they had taken a chance on me. I was an assistant manager in an in-store branch and they promoted me to a branch manager of a standalone branch. And I know those who are not in banking are like, it's a branch, but it's a big difference. A lot of times in-stores aren't seen as valid branches and they are, but that's not always how the world views them. And so that was a huge leap for them. And so I wanted to make sure that I really took advantage of that. And so if that's you, appreciate every opportunity and realize that no one owes you anything. Your upbringing, your circumstances may not have been that great, but walking around with a chip on your shoulder won't get you anywhere. Don't begrudge the helping hand or your past. Okay. Lesson number 4. It's not about you. If you are leading a team, your team comes first. We are naturally a me-focused society, and it's hard to put others above ourselves, but it is necessary to be a good leader. In fact, the best leaders understand that their team is them. There is no I and them, it's an us. If they succeed, you succeed. And if they fail, you fail. John C. Maxwell says, a good leader is a person who takes a little more than their share of the blame and a little less than their share of the credit. Now imagine if leaders did that, right? Instead of pointing the finger at their team saying, oh, I directed so-and-so to do that. I don't know what happened. No, I'm gonna own that. And then when things do go really well, oh, that was my whole team. They did that. That was them. That's what really good leadership looks like. So being a leader sometimes requires sacrifice. It might mean sacrificing your time, your ego, your agenda. Serving the needs of your employees and making sure they feel valued is critical to the overall health and success of your team. When I took that first branch manager position, I was 24 years old. I didn't truly understand what it meant to lead a team on my own. I'd never done that. I'd had good managers and bad ones, but no real leadership training or coaching. So I read a lot. I devoured books on leadership, on sales, on customer service, on teamwork, because I wanted to make sure that I was a leader that people wanted to follow, that wanted to be a part of, and I wanted to make sure I could support my team and help them grow and develop. And so if you aren't familiar with the term servant leadership, spend some time investigating it. On a recent LinkedIn post, a connection of mine shared that he didn't like the term servant leader because for him, he felt like it was leading servants or serving servants. And I commented back and said that I perceived it as a leader serving their team. It's the posture by which one leads. We work together, we dream together, we build together. So Robert K. Greenleaf coined that phrase, servant leader, and shared that it is a leadership philosophy focusing on the growth and well-being of your people and your community. Do those served grow as individuals? Do they become healthier, wiser, more autonomous? Instead of the people working to serve the leader exists to serve the people. And you can check out more of those nuggets on greenleaf.org if you wanted to check out more on servant leadership. So our next lesson is be a voice. Sometimes you need to speak up on behalf of those not in the room. As a leader, not only do you represent your team, you represent integrity, truth, and honor. If you are fortunate enough to have a seat at the table, make it count. Sometimes you must stand alone and fight the good fight. Oftentimes you'll be mentally battered and bruised, but you still need to speak up. It's important. When I was thinking about this lesson, there were a few elements that came to mind when I was like, if I could get them to understand being a voice and what that looked like. And so then what would a leadership conversation be without an acronym? So we have one for you. And so the V in voice is value add. What is the value of speaking up? Who does it benefit, and how does it help? The O is for options and choices to consider. What are all the paths available? What are the pros and cons of each? The I is for impact to integrity. So what impact does action or inaction have on your personal integrity, the integrity of your team, and the integrity of your business? The C is for cost of silence. If you decide to do nothing, say nothing, what is the cost? Again, not just to you, but the people you serve or represent. And what is that long-term cost? What is that short-term cost? And then the E is experience for all. Overall, how does any of this shape the experience? Does it create a positive or negative experience for your team, your company, your clients? When you're thinking about being a voice, keep this acronym in mind. In my current role as manager of client experience, I am often the voice of the client. I try to put myself in their shoes when responding to changes in policy, general ideas and recommendations. Sometimes I'm the voice of the underserved. As a person who knew poverty firsthand, I have a unique perspective that a lot of my peers don't have. I try to shine a spotlight on areas that I think directly impact those individuals that may not have all their financial ducks in a row, but that still need to be seen and need to have value. And then other times I'm the voice of my team, pushing back against individuals or departments that might try to set unrealistic expectations or that don't fully understand what my team members do or don't do. So remember that you have a seat at the table, so be a voice. Use your voice. Lesson number 6, be true to your personal values. Wherever your adventures take you, whatever chances and possibilities you create for yourself and others, no matter how hard you work, stay true to who you are at your core. If you don't have personal core values, I challenge you to explore this. These are my core values. Each one of them is a driving force in my life, the person that I want to be for myself and who I want to be out in the community, who I show up as for others. You certainly don't need to have this many. You just have one, but whatever that one is, make sure it serves as a guiding principle in your life. Your personal values truly are the fabric that holds everything together. How you lead, how you work, how you voice your concerns, how you live each day. I have these values posted in my office. I can see them right now. I look down a little bit. And I also have them at home next to my bathroom mirror. And every morning while I'm getting ready, brushing my teeth, washing my face, I read over them to make sure that I level set the day and that I keep them at the top of mind. When I'm feeling frustrated or angry, I might get negative for a second. And then I remember my values, positivity, enthusiasm. And I commit to letting go of that negativity and focusing on the things that line up with my personal values. And I promised you 2 golden nuggets. And so the first one is know yourself. Take personal assessments such as the Clifton Strength Finders, Myers-Briggs, Predictive Index, the Colby A Index, and the DISC, When you take these types of things, they all lead to the same skills and abilities and a wonderful confirmation of the natural gifts and talents that you were given. And that helps to steer you towards the right things, best opportunities, the career path. And as a kid, I never really knew what I was supposed to do. I was like, I could do this, I could do that, but nothing really like, I want to be this when I grow up. And so these assessments always kind of help to guide me along the way. The other thing is, doing this with your team is extremely rewarding. Finding out who they are, what their strengths are, and then maximizing those strengths is amazing. The next one is find your squad. Leadership can be lonely. Having a squad makes all the difference. Your squad consists of the people who truly care about you and want to see you succeed. Your squad doesn't have an agenda. They don't seek to keep you one rung beneath them on the ladder of success. You know, people like that. Things are great as long as you're not doing better than me, then things aren't great. They're not in that. They're not in your squad if those are those people. These are people you trust and who you can be your true, authentic, and vulnerable self with. They support you in your successes and your failures. They genuinely cheer for and advocate for you when you aren't in the room. My squad has been amazing. There's some pictures of the different people in my squad up there right now. They support me. They tell me when I'm being too dramatic, because if anybody knows me, I am so dramatic. They nudge me back on the path when I delve too far off course, and they're irreplaceable, and they truly keep me lifted and focused on my purpose and my values. But it's a two-way street. You don't get to take. You have to make sure that those people in your squad, that you are supporting them, that you're lifting them up just as much as you're asking them to lift you up. And then lastly, let's fast forward. So you met that girl earlier with the hand-me-downs and the rundown living conditions, the welfare and the food stamps. So as I shared, I didn't get to be vice president of a bank, a homeowner, and a positive contributor to society by myself. People helped me and my family along the way. So I'll continue to reach out and help those who need a hand by sharing my time, talent, and treasure. I'll continue to be a servant leader to my team and my community. I realize that my life isn't just about me. It's more than me. I've been on 2 mission trips, and you can see those images there. There's one to LA, one to Peru. And I've seen poverty far beyond what I shared with you today of my own life. And so the world needs strong servant leaders. And I hope that through my sharing, that you are reminded of how you can help others and lead through hard work and hand-me-ups. I encourage you to get involved and give back. And on that note, I will turn it back over to Sheila and Makisha.
I had to find my mute button, sorry. Tiffani, that was awesome. Go ahead, Sheila, sorry.
So no, I was just going to say, I don't know if you want to start, Makisha, but I was jotting things down, Tiffani, because you had so many great, I love the idea of the cost of silence. That really struck me, maybe because I have a political role in my community as well, and just how important it is to be able to, if you have the opportunity to be at the table, whether it's in business, in your faith community, in your neighborhood, in your workplace, to be able to use that place to try to make things better. And I love the way that you kind of didn't focus on your own needs, but you really worked on, focusing on the team and on how others' needs were. That just was really, that spoke to me and was really rich. So I don't have a question. I just wanted to comment that those are some of the things that really struck my heart. I love your passion for service and for caring. We're all works in progress, but I think what you focus on is that, we're not in this alone. And the more you give, my experience is the more you get. And I think that's what you kind of to summarize your thoughts. I just thought that really spoke to me. Makisha, I don't know if you or Rachel or any other participants want to jump in, but feel free. This is a discussion time, so feel free to jump in.
So I wanted to thank everyone again for coming out. I see a couple of lead participants in the audience. Thank you so much for joining. I'm just going to read through maybe some of the comments. And again, as Sheila said, if you guys have anything, feel free to either raise your hand and we'll let you have the floor, or you can just put it in the chat room and we'll read it off and we'll have Tiffani to expound. But one person says, great thought. Leadership is service to your team or your sphere of influence. And I think that really does speak to your message today, Tiffani. Got a really good summary there. Samantha Fowler says, truth is, we are the lucky ones to be in her squad. So it's really a good feeling when you, like you say, you have a squad and you're not just pouring into them, but they're pouring into you as well.
Lakeisha, if I could just ask Tiffani to expound on that. I just thought that squad idea was really important. You know, COVID's accentuated the fact that we tend to be pretty insular, and you know, you stick with the people that are real familiar to you, or maybe your family or your partner. But talk to us about how you develop that squad. How do you develop that teamwork on your squad? Tomorrow we're doing Leadership Northwest Indiana. We're focusing on teamwork, and I'm just, you know, you are teamwork in action. I'd love you to share some of your tidbits.
Sure. So it's funny that it doesn't actually start necessarily with leadership. It starts before that, right? So a lot of the people that are on my squad, we worked together as peers, and we had each other's back. We were there to support if they, you know, and I'll pick on my friend Kristen. You know, she's my equivalent on the operations side. I'm on the experience and sales side. And we feed off of each other. We reach out to each other. If I have a question about something, I know I can go to her. She can come to me. And it starts to build over time. I've got so many of them, and a lot of them are on here, and they've always been supportive. And the thing is, you know that because you can feel it. You can feel genuine support. You can feel when someone genuinely cares about you. And that, I think, is important for the squad, because like I said, everyone doesn't belong on the squad. Like, there are some people you just don't want there. You know, and I know people say, well, you keep your friends close. Enemy. No, I don't want my enemies anywhere near me. I don't want them in my space. I want only the people that are going to support me and that I'm going to support, that are truly wanting to make change. And the thing is, you start to learn over time that it's people who are a lot like you. And I don't mean me being the one that had hand-me-downs and all that. I mean the heart of a person. You know, someone who cares about people, who genuinely wants to see people succeed. Those are the people that you start to gather around you. And you'll see other people would say my squad is the people that challenge me, they push me, that too. But you also need some comfort sometimes. You need that, like, you know what, I know you had a rough day. I saw it on your face all day. If you need to talk, if you need to go, you know, take 5 minutes, I got you, like, do that. You know, and that's really where that team is built. It's really just knowing people and wanting to get to know people that are on your team, and not just keeping it surface level. You got to dive deeper in order to have a squad.
Can I chime in? And I'll just say, Tiffani, thank you. I agree with Sheila. Every time I've seen you present, I feel so inspired, and I've seen you present to a lot of different groups, like our youth leaders, and every time it's just amazing. So thank you so much for making yourself available today to this group. I wanted to jump on this issue of the squad, because I think it's really amazing. And I do have a question. So of course, academics, we like to, like, we never have questions. We just like to hear ourselves talk. But I really love this idea of, you know, as I was listening to you talk about your squad, I jotted down support network, and I actually have a couple of members of my support network on here who are people who have really done exactly what you have described. And in the Leadership Institute, we often talk about being really deliberate about building those support networks. And sometimes we take people through an exercise called the Square Squad, which is which gets through. This is actually a Brene Brown exercise, but it gets to what you were just describing, which is, you know, really taking the moment to intentionally think about the people who are the ones who will tell you what you need to hear, and also tell you when you're off base, when you need to hear that too, but not the ones in the cheap seats, right? The people that don't need to be in your squad because they're just happy to criticize whenever. It's a great exercise to be able to thank the people that you do recognize as being in your squad, because sometimes it's not as, you know, that support network becomes really critical in our own building up. And I think you often see who's in your square is also in my square. So it's a great exercise. But I wanted to ask you a question about how you traverse across the many domains of your life in which you lead. I just find it fascinating, your energy. You clearly are successful at work, successful in your community, successful with your family. And and I think that's a challenge that a lot of leaders face. I myself just dropped the ball with my daughter this week, and I'm kind of like cursing myself for not being a great mother right now. And I mean, we have these challenges on a regular basis. So I guess I was wondering, could you talk a little bit about how you kind of make the transition across these different domains, and maybe any learning that you take away as you lead in the different domains of your life?
Yeah, sure. I think the first thing I would say is consistency in self, if that makes sense. So I am always who I am. So if you hang out with my people, that my faith-based group, I'm going to be the same people that I hang out with my work group. It's the same, right? Because some people are different with all these groups, and that takes a lot of energy and effort to be somebody else all the time. So if you can just be who you are, and I think to what you shared with your daughter, it's really just owning it, right? Like, and I will share this with you too. You know, my mom passed away in 2007, and those moments are quickly forgotten. So just know right now, it might seem like it's oh, I dropped the ball, but later it's the how did you make her feel? You know, she knows she's loved. It's a moment in time. And I think that's why I find it so easy when you lose someone that important to you that early on. I think I was 26 at the time. It puts everything in perspective, and none of it really, it's like, are you helping people? Are you a good human? Like, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to drop the ball, but just be a good human. And all that other stuff will fall into place, and people will forgive you because they know that that's not the norm. They know that's not who you are every day. It's like, I know that you didn't mean to do this, Mom, right? But when it happens all the time, then you have to do some self-reflection and say, what are my goals? What are my values? Who am I being? And am I being who I really want to be to my family, to my friends, to my coworkers? And I think that for me is, I always go back to those values. Who am I saying that I am? Who am I trying to be? And then go out and be that.
Tiffany, I love that. As you were talking, I was just looking up the Maya Angelou quote. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you make them feel. That's just like one of my favorite quotes. I was starting to type it in the chat, but I just thought I would share that, because that's really kind of, it sounds like that's key to your life philosophy, is being consistent, and then also really focusing, whichever domain you're working in, whether it's your faith domain, your neighborhood domain, your work, community, friends and family, you're trying to be consistent, and also really reflecting on how do you make others feel, and that's really powerful. I see some people nodding, and I see some comments in the chat. It sounds like that really resonated with a lot of people today. Is there anyone that would like to contribute or ask a question or make a comment? Got some really great comments in the chat. You have a serious, your squad is on here, because they're just talking about how you really do you do the words that you're using in this presentation. You really live them. So that's very powerful.
Yeah, they're good people. Good people.
I'll ask another question while we're waiting for people to raise their hand or put something in the chat. I found it really helpful that you kind of mapped out for us some moments that have mattered in your leadership development. It was really moving to hear about your early life experiences, and I love the way you frame it too, right? Like just so as to understand like where we're coming from and what our possibilities are, I think is really wonderful. And I was wondering if you have a moment that really surprised you, like that maybe taught you something about leadership that you didn't expect to learn.
Yeah, I would say that it is the disenchantment that comes with leadership position. So when you're on the front line, you believe everything as gold, and it's like, if they said it, it's got to be true. And you just, well, maybe I'm the only naive one, but I just have that faith in people. It's like, if this is what they're telling me, it's real. But then when you get to kind of the back end of a thing, if that makes sense, things start to unfold, and it's like, but why would we do that? And And for me, that's a lot of where that purpose comes in, because I'm like, I will always be true to these things, regardless to what's happening in the space around me. I have to stay true to these, because it'll be like, well, we're going to do this because X, Y, and Z, but it doesn't make sense for this audience or that audience. And I've had to question that. And that's where a lot of this stuff comes from, because it's real. It's like, I have to be a voice right now. I need to speak up for this group that's not here. And it's one of those things where you expect that everyone is thinking about everybody, and they're not. And so that is probably one of the biggest things. It's just like, oh, so we're not necessarily all of the things that we want to be. We're moving towards them, if that makes sense. And that was a kind of an adjustment for me to see that the rose-colored glasses had to come off and see the world for what it was, I guess.
Jeffrey, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could jump in, a couple of simple questions. First, this is fascinating. Some wonderful things here, you know. I just simply coach Spanish. I'm a teacher, you know. What do you find most irritating in other people is the first question. Probably showing up on time with kids in class or something like that. But really, what do you find most irritating about other people? And second, if your 10-year-old self could see you now, what would it think?
Those are wonderful.
I'm glad you laughed.
Yeah. So what irritates me in other people? I would say big picture is when people don't believe in themselves and they have that Eeyore attitude. Because everybody you can do, if you put your mind to it, you can do anything, right? And so when people are like, woe is me, I'm like, bro, listen,
Yes.
Pull up the pants and let's go. Like, let's be amazing. Like, we can do this. So that's probably be like the big irritation. And the small one is just people not respecting other people's time, right? So if we say we're going to meet at 11:30, if you know at 11 you're not going to be there, let me know. I could stay home for another 20 minutes, right? Like, it's those types of things. It's that integrity, and then honoring your word. If you say if you're going to do something and then you can't do it, just honor that word and say, hey, I know I said 11:30. Can we make it noon or whatever, right? So that's question one. And then question two, my 10-year-old self, I think.
That's a good question.
First, she'd be like, nice digs, like, right? Like, look at you in the kitchen sink. Like, and so I feel like that's probably what, like, she'd be like, wow, you did good for yourself, right? But I think at the end of the day, she would probably be pleased with who she's become. I would like to think so. I'm trying to reflect on my 10-year-old self was a tomboy who played Barbies and video games a lot. So she would probably still be pleased that I also still play video games. It's like, you still have an Xbox. Nice. Like, that would be my 10-year-old self. So, I mean, if you wanted a good answer on that one, Jeffrey, you might have wanted to say like my 20-year-old self, but my 10-year-old self is probably glad that I have 2 dogs and that I play with video games.
That's perfect, Tiffani. Rochella, you have a question. I see your hand is up.
Yes, good afternoon. Hi, Tiffani.
Hey.
I so very much enjoyed your presentation and learning more about you. What really stood out to me was that manager you had when you were assistant manager, who said that you would not ever be anything more than an assistant manager. So my question, well, actually it's 2 questions. Since then, have you ran into that manager again? Okay. And then my other question was, at such a young age, how did you have the confidence to know and make that move to the next opportunity?
Good question, Rochella. So I'm going to tell you 2 things. One, that wasn't the only bad thing about that manager. So she was also the one that would take the team's ideas to the meetings and then claim them as her own. And like, she was all of those things. So when someone says you can't do what I'm doing and I've been doing what you're doing, it makes it a little bit easier to feel like I might be able to pull this off. And so that's the first part of it. But I can tell you that I cried after that day, because I felt so like I had worked hard, working full time, going to school full time, like trying to prove, again, we all know we're trying to prove something to ourselves, to other people, that we're worth something. And so I had felt like I finally had a piece of paper that said that I was more than a girl with hand-me-downs. And she was like, you're still nothing. And that was devastating. And I immediately after that day resolved in my heart that I was not going to work for her and I was going to find something else. But that's why I moved, I applied for a lateral position. Keep in mind, I didn't apply for the higher position. After they interviewed me, they said, well, we'd like to see you come back for the manager position. But I didn't apply for that because I was like, let me just try at least what I'm doing. I know I can do what I'm doing, and then maybe I can get better over there. So that's kind of how that all kind of worked out. Good question.
Tiffani, you talk about in your response, really toxic leadership. You know, you worked with somebody who undermined and perhaps, you know, taking credit for work from other people, you know, just making you feel not less than, I should say. Talk about how you take a toxic environment like that and make it become something that actually helps you stand up. It's just kind of how a lot of people work in environments that, or have worked in environments that have been less than productive, but you know, we have to get through it. And how do you get through it and make it part of your story in a positive way? I'd love to hear about it.
Well, it's a couple things, right? So one is that squad. You team up with the people that you work with. It's like, we're not going to be beating all of us down. Like, we're going to rise up together. And it was like when that person was off work, everything was amazing at the branch. The branch flowed like a well-oiled machine. They'd come in and it's like, oh, and it felt like, why, you know? And so we just made the best of it. And that's oftentimes, everything's a season. And I think it's important that people know that wherever you are right now isn't your end all be all. It's a season. And so you get through it, you learn from it. And that's one of the reasons I think why I am the type of leader I am, because I had bad leaders and I had good ones. I had another manager that she was amazing. When I first started working at the bank in Illinois, my rate on my car loan was 18.99% because I had no credit. And I was like, oh, please, 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 if I could just get, you know, I think we were at 6%. And I was like, if I could just refinance. And she's like, I can't right now, but if you can show 6 months to a year, I will approve it hands down, because you could approve them in the branch level. And she did that for me. She took a chance on me, not knowing if I was going to pay that or not, but she put her name on that dotted line saying, I vouch for her as an employee that's going to pay this off. So it's like, you get those people who are amazing that can kind of temper the people that aren't so great. And then you learn what you want to be and what you don't want to be, and kind of, you know, move along the path with that.
That's a great answer. Are there any other questions in the group or anyone? Makisha, I don't know if you had any direction you wanted to go. We have about 7 minutes left. Anyone have a burning question? You had a couple of people in the chat that said that they wanted to, you know, thank you for the role you've played in their lives. One person said that she didn't want to get on because she was afraid she would cry because you've been so significant to her. So, I mean, and another person said, I hope everyone on this call finds their own Tiffani. I mean, that is powerful, 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 that we all need that somebody who can coach us and be the person who is kind of the rock. If you have more than one Tiffani, that's really awesome too. Some of us might have, a couple people we can go to, but I think that's if that's one big takeaway for everyone on the call, I think that is the power that you can have in somebody else's life to kind of be their person who never budges, is always consistent and always this, the constant. Rachel, I see you nodding. I don't know if you wanted to jump in, but to kind of take us home, and maybe you could talk a little bit about what we do at the Institute, and a little bit about our fabulous Leadership Northwest Indiana program that we've redesigned and rebuilt. For the people like on this call, I mean, when I hear what their interests are and I'm reading the chat, oh my gosh, Leadership Northwest Indiana is just like spot on. It's not, for those of you that came 10 years ago to our program, it is really much different. And so maybe Rachel, as our designer, you could kind of talk a little bit about that.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about all the cool things that we do get to do with our participants in the program. So Leadership Northwest Indiana is a program that has been around for many years. And a few years ago, we did a redesign It's really meant for managers in the region who are just looking to develop their leadership capacity or their skills. We take an identity approach and we look at the whole person. So what we really explore during the program is a lot of self-awareness, right? How do we understand how we lead in every facet of our lives? Where do we find our opportunities for development? Where do we see that we lead particularly well in some areas and could transfer those skills from one domain to a next? We spend a lot of time building support networks within our group. So this is why the squad is so important. We see that people who go through our programs acquire members of their squad in the program. We are really intentional because leadership development is a lot of work and it requires a lot of support. And we like making sure that people build those support networks. And it's just a lot of fun too. I feel like every time we launch a new program after the first day, we have just so much energy in the room and we really enjoy meeting on a monthly basis. We come back and we explore some different element of leadership every time. We explore different behaviors, different values. Most people walk away having a better understanding of a lot of the things that Tiffani hit on today. What are my leadership values? What are the things that I care deeply about? What's the meaning I take away from leadership? And how do I want to serve the constituents in my network? And we do all of this based on evidence-based work. So I am a leadership scholar. Our assistant academic director is as well. And there's a lot of research on leadership and what contributes to its development. And we build on all of that to help our participants have a very enriching experience. That by the end, they have a very robust development plan. At the center of it, so this is another thing that Tiffani described, was how critical it is to take assessments to learn a lot about yourself. We do have a 360-degree assessment that is part of the program. And based on the results of that, we do one-on-one coaching. And I think we really find that this is often the secret sauce to the experience, that we get a lot of individual time to reflect on our leadership. And then we also get a lot of time with our support network. So these are all pieces that come into that program. And we just have a lot of fun doing it. And we know that the people who come through it have a lot of fun engaging in the activities with us. Anything else, Ms. Sheila, that you want me to add on?
That was a terrific summary, and I appreciate you mentioning that it's fun. We have a lot of fun, but I think our participants, when they kind of talk about the program, they really talk about how they look forward to it every month, and that they have developed a network amongst the other participants, which is really powerful. We can't underestimate the power of having professional allies and advocates and friends.
But we also challenge people. So leadership is hard work. And that's why the support networks are so important. We will challenge you to try new things and push outside of your comfort zone. And I think that also really helps people kind of make leaps in their own leadership capacity.
Thank you so much for that, Rachel. For those of you all who are interested, I did put the link in the chat room. We are registering now for our 2022 L&I class. It's going to be amazing. 8 in-person sessions this year. We're wrapping up now our hybrid session. That did go well. We were hybrid just to be COVID conscious. But next year we are really hoping to, or this season, we're really hoping to go ahead and be a full-on in-person program. So we're looking forward to that. Again, the link is in the chat room. We have about maybe 4 minutes left, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up now. I want to thank you again, Tiffani. I'm trying to find the words because I don't want to get too, as your friend said, too blubbering, but I can relate to a lot of what you said. I was the only child, but I did come from very humble beginnings. I joked with my team the other day and told them that when I was younger, I thought we were rich because we had everything that we needed. And it wasn't until I got into high school that I figured out, oh, we're working class. Okay, got it. But again, like you, I had a mom who made things work and made things happen. And she really did instill in me the importance of everything that you said today, the importance of giving back, the importance of helping people, and the importance of just being a kind person. And so for me, my biggest takeaway from your speech today or from your presentation is to take chances, not just on yourself, but on other people too. It's really, really important. Like, I think that's how we get the work done, and how we move forward as a society, just to help everyone to become a better person, is just to take chances on yourself, and then to take chances on other people, and don't be afraid to either take a hand up or give a hand up. And so with that, we're gonna give you guys the rest of your day.